What is up, everybody? Saucy Picks MMA coming back at you with another video. As always, I'm your host, Skylar Lurwell. It's been a crazy couple weeks. I've been traveling a lot. Sorry for the lighting in this video and no microphone. I'm actually currently in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, on a work trip. But 2 weeks ago I was in Florida and just been busy. Been super crazy. So the content hasn't been super up to date, but I'm working on it as I travel. So happy I'm able to get a video in. I have a couple of big announcements coming over the next couple of weeks. I got a new partner joining the Saucy Picks MMA show. She's pretty awesome. She's a cute little thing, and I will have a big reveal for who's joining and partnering with me in Saucy Picks MMA. I'm excited for her to join me. I think she's going to really bring a lot to the table here in the Saucy Picks MMA world. But yeah, it's exciting. You'll probably see the announcement of who I'm partnering with. It'll either be this weekend or the following week. I haven't decided yet, but we'll see, and it's gonna be awesome either way. But yeah, I'm excited. We got really a not terrible card for how many fights have fallen through. There's some really good fights. There's some exciting fights. I'm excited. I really am excited for the card. So yeah, Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong or I guess Yadong Song as the main event here in Seattle for UFC Fight Night. But it's going to be good. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. For the first fight, we've got Modestas Bukauskas versus Rafael Sequeira. Of course, we've got Bukauskas coming off of his submission win to Marcin Prachnio, and Rafael Sequeira coming off a very disappointing loss to Ibo Aslan. Really, he just shelled up and didn't look like he knew what to do. The lights got to him or something. It was just super weird performance from him. This fight, I mean, it could be exciting. Both are you know not necessarily trustworthy guys and not super high level, but they're both going to bang it out. They're going to most likely strike both of them. Modestas Bukauskas probably has the better striking here in this matchup. He's got a little bit crisper, shots, cleaner reads. And Rafael Sequeira, after his last performance against Ibo Aslan, I just don't think I can trust the guy. I hate the line at minus 325. That's pretty gross. I mean, nobody Modestas Bukauskas probably shouldn't be that big of a favorite to anyone in the UFC, but it is what it is. As far as value goes, I don't see much value here on the favorite and back to the underdog. I just have a hard time trusting this Cerquera guy. I mean, like I said, his regional scene footage, it feels like he was crushing cans, and then he comes to the UFC and gets a real test in Ibo Aslan, and he just fails pretty drastically. So betting wise, I'm gonna steer clear from this fight. There's not really much excitement here for me when it comes to the betting world. But as far as a pick goes, I think I've got to go with Modestas Bukauskas just due to the fact he's, had more UFC experience, a little bit more of a veteran to the game, and Rafael Cerqueira looked like he doesn't belong in his last fight. So with that said, Modestas Bukauskas is the pick. Nick Klein versus Mansour Abdul Malik. We've got Nick Klein coming off of the Contender Series. He was a huge favorite in his Contender Series fight. He came out and he got the rear naked choke in, a matter of seconds and cast as a huge underdog. And then we've got Mansour Abdul Malik, a real contender, a real prospect, I should say. He's got some real skills. His striking is really good. And then, of course, he has the accolades of a grappler as well. So and Nick Klein, we saw him in his Dana White Contender Series fight. He did come out, like a bat out of hell looking for that finish, but that's not usually how it is. It's usually slower paced for him. He's trying to avoid the striking and get the takedowns, and I just don't see him taking down Mansour Abdul Malik here. I think Malik has the skills to either offensively wrestle Nick Klein or defensively, you know, defend the attacks from Nick Klein. And then on top of that, I think Mansour Abdul Malik has his striking is levels. I'm talking levels above Nick Klein's. Nick Klein hates to strike. When he does, he doesn't look very good. Um, Mansour Abdul Malik has really good striking, good low kicks, fast hands, good boxing. So I think this is probably a no-brainer for me. I think the Malik side is a good side to take. He's a big favorite, but I agree with it. I think, maybe minus 600 is a little heavy. Price him maybe closer to minus 450, 460. But I think that he's rightfully favored, and should be the heavy favorite in this one. And honestly, I wouldn't be mad if there's not a ton of value there, but if you were looking for an additional parlay piece, I wouldn't be super mad if you put Mansour Abdul Malik in there. I know I preach stay away from those, larger favorites, but Mansour Abdul Malik is the real deal. He's had some actual UFC level experience. Nick Klein has not. Um, Malik is very well rounded. His striking is million times better than Nick Klein's, and he's going to have the grappling to cancel out whatever Nick Klein does bring. I will say the thing that I do worry about on the Mansour Abdul Malik side is if things get nasty and gruely and really dirty, Nick Klein is probably his only way of winning is snatching up rear naked choke. So if he makes a mistake in there and he slips up and Nick Klein jumps on the back and sinks in the rear naked choke, it's possible. Anything's possible in this sport, and so that's definitely why I hesitate on that big, huge minus 560 number. It's just a really scary number. So, I mean, if you would like to parlay piece him, you could. I'm leaning towards the maybe the Malik TKO side. I think he could definitely find a finish in this fight. It'll probably be by TKO just because his striking is so good. So that'll be the pick here for me. Ricky Simone versus Javid Basharat. You know, I don't agree with these lines right off the bat. Minus 285 for Javid Basharat is not, it's just not what I'm looking at. Not what I'm looking for. It seems big because sure, Ricky Simone, he's coming off what, three losses. He lost to who was it? Mario Batista, um, the Oliveira kid, Vinicius de Oliveira, and then there was one more loss that he had just recently. Oh, it was Yadong Song, the main eventer. So he's coming on. He's on a three-fight losing streak. But Javid, um, he just lost a fight. It was to, I believe, Farid Zahabi, because Ahmed Zahabi is the coach. Farid, or is it not Farid? It's um the Zahabi kid. Javid's come. He lost to him. And really, I could see Ricky Simone implementing his grappling. I know I said that against Vinicius Oliveira as well. Um, I don't know. This is a little bit of a trickier one for me. I think Ricky Simone is too big of an underdog. I do see Javid. I'll side with him here as the pick. But if Ricky can really use his wrestling and find control with his wrestling, and even if he makes it dirty boxing, because Javid's going to want to stay to the outside, use his long legs with, low kicks, high kicks, deep kicks, and use a long jab. If Ricky Simone can make it dirty, mix in some dirty boxing, get on the inside, work the body, and then work the upstairs, and then from there transition to his wrestling. I could see Ricky Simone, possibly pulling an upset here. It's not a side I'm going to bet on, uh, but I do think the value here is on Ricky Simone. I think a plus 230 underdog is too big of an underdog for Ricky Simone to be against Javid Bashra. So again, the side for the pick is going to be Javid, but man, don't count Ricky Simone out in here. His back's up against the wall. He's only 32 years old. He's still in his prime. He has some good wins. He has, a tough style to beat. And Javid Bashra has the style to lose to Ricky Simone for sure. So don't count him out here, but the pick will be Javid. We've got Nursultan Ruzaboyev versus Eric McConaughey. Eric McConaughey coming in on short notice. I believe Nursultan Ruzaboyev, this is a middleweight fight, if I'm not mistaken, which is Nursultan's last one was at welterweight, and Eric's last one, I believe, was at light heavyweight. So they're meeting in the middle here at middleweight. Minus 300 favorite is probably warranted for Nursultan Ruzaboyev. Eric McConaughey, he's not anything special. I didn't love his regional scene tape. He does have some okay grappling, and I think he could expose that here against Ruzaboyev. Uh, if he can get past the hands and past the long legs of Ruzaboyev, which is going to be a hard thing for him to do. I mean, he's a 6 footer versus Ruzaboyev being 6'5" here. So it's going to be hard for Eric McConaughey to get past that long, lengthy distance of Ruzaboyev. And that's where I see, Eric McConaughey having the biggest problems. If he is able to um, get through that guard of Nursultan Ruzaboyev and find takedowns, he could find some success. But I don't really see him holding Nursultan down for too long. And if he does, Ruzaboyev has some dangerous submissions off his back. Um, so yeah, I see Nursultan getting up. If he does get taken down, and when he does get up, he's going to be throwing that big right hand down the middle and probably find the knockout over Eric McConaughey. So as far as a betting perspective goes on this one, I mean I hate the lines. Minus 300 for Nursultan Ruzaboyev just because he's still kind of a fraud in my eyes, but he's fighting a relative can here in Eric McConaughey. He's old. He's 35 years old nearly. uh his UFC debut on short notice, it just seems like a bad mix for Eric McConaughey here. So Nursultan's going to be the side, and really, if I'm going to take a betting perspective on this, it's got to be Nursultan either inside the distance, which isn't going to be a super awesome line, or Nursultan by TKO or KO, which is you're going to get a better price there for that. I think I see how this fight ending that way as well. I think Nursultan Ruzaboyev is going to find some sort of right hand down the middle and probably starch Eric McConaughey here. Iwan Kutelaba versus Ibo Aslan. Good fight, really good fight. It's going to be a tough one for Iwan. I don't count him out though. Iwan is a good fighter. He's had some really good learning lessons in his last fights. Even since the Ankalaev fights, he's grown a lot in the sport. He's looked really good in his last couple fights out. Trying to remember who he fought last. Man, it's just right on the tip of my tongue. Um, Bear with me here. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's gonna bug me if I don't find it. Oh, that's right. He lost the Felipe Lins fight. But before that was the Tanner Bozer, Kennedy and Nzechukwu, Johnny Walker, and Ryan Spann, all losses. He had a Dustin or uh yeah, let's see, a Devin Clark win before that. Man, I guess he hasn't done as well as I thought he has. In my mind, he's been doing better than he has previously, which is weird. Uh, but still, even still, I feel like he has improved since the Magomed Ankalaev fights. His wrestling is, it's okay. He's got, of course, that combat sambo in the background. The problem with Ion Kutelaba, and we see it against all of these guys, is he has good wrestling, but he oftentimes opts to stand and strike. And I think if he does that here with Ibo Aslan, he's probably going to get caught, and Ibo's probably going to find a finish here. And even if Iwan incorporates his wrestling, I think Ibo Aslan is good enough to get to the cage, get his back up against the cage, and work back to his feet. So I think the line's probably correct here. Iwan could get it done at a plus 115. Underdog. It's just not a good enough price for me to take a shot on it. Just because I think Ibo Aslan's the real deal. He's shown he can really finish fights. He's going to put the pressure on fast and hard. Um, so the pick here is going to be Ibo Aslan for sure. And I don't hate the minus 135 line. I think there's some value there. I think if there is value in this fight, the value is on the Aslan side. Um, the the line I would probably take, and let's look at the line here, is I would look at the angle of Ibo Aslan by KO. I think that's probably the way I would bet this fight, just because it's so likely for him to go in there in the first round and start throwing hands, and he's most likely going to find it. He really is. Um, I'm not seeing lines yet. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Ibo Aslan by yeah, I don't I hate it. Ibu Aslan by KO, TKO, or DQ is minus 125 on the Bet Online app. So you may as well just take him at his money line, which his money line right now is sitting at a minus 172. So it's a little more expensive, but I think the value's there on the money line. If the number was better on his KO prop, I might look into that a little more. Uh, but yeah, I don't hate Ibu Aslan as a minus 170 favorite. It's a little chalky, but it could be a good parlay piece, just because I have a hard time seeing Ewan, win this fight just due to the fact that, I mean, as I mentioned, Ivo Aslan's a beast. He's got some cardio, he's got heavy hands. I think he's got the defensive wrestling and the get up game to kind of disappoint Ewan in that area. So he's going to be the pick for me here. Andre Fili versus Mel Costa. It's a pick 'em fight. I want to say Mel Costa has now moved to a favorite, but a very slight favorite. I want to Andre Fili last time I checked was like a plus 107 underdog, so it's a really close line. Bill Costa, he's a good fighter. He's had a hard time, I feel like, really proving himself as a fighter. Had some ups and downs. Andre Fili, of course, as we know, he is a legend of the sport. He's done a lot. He's fought the who's who. He's a veteran, man. He's a veteran of the sport. He's just coming off a really close, maybe not controversial decision win over Cub Swanson, but it was a close fight for sure. I scored it for Cub, but I'm not mad that Andre won it. It was just such a close fight. And honestly, at dog odds for Andre Fili, and from here on out, he's probably just going to grow as an underdog. I love Andre Fili as a dog here. Mel Costa, like I said, he's a good fighter, but Andre Fili is a dog, man. He really is. He's got veteran experience. He's got, probably better fight IQ than Mel Costa. I think he's got the submission and grappling aspect. If need be, he's probably got that over Mel Costa. Mel Costa's good, but he's just had a hard time, you know, showing that he's here to really fit in with the best of the best. And I think Andre Fili, with his veteran experience, is going to be too much for Mel Costa and probably win a decision here. So Andre Fili at plus odds, I love. I really do. I could see myself getting there, to that line. It's a close line though. It's nearly a pick 'em. 50-50 fight, but I do tend to lean on the Andre Fili side for this one. Alrighty, Alonzo Menifield versus Julius Walker. So Julius Walker, I feel like, yeah, let's just start over here. Julius Walker, of course, is coming in on for his UFC debut. He is a former D1 basketball player, and he's had 6 regional scene pro bouts. And the way I've looked into this in the film on Julius Walker, I feel like Julius Walker has just been crushing cans, man. He's been fighting the old, you know, the Ultimate Fighter guys that were on the Ultimate Fighter twice, and he's been just crushing cans really. Alonzo Menifield, on the other hand, I feel like he's kind of being slept on by some guys. There are a lot of guys siding with him. I can't say that, but he's just had kind of a weird run. He had a draw a couple fights ago. I don't know what he was doing against Carlos or Olberg. I mean, that was just weird. Um, but man, Atomic Alonso here could f probably win this fight and probably will win this fight pretty easily. I just don't think Julius Walker is very good. He does have some grappling, but Alonzo Menifield has, better grappling. He is known for his big, powerful shots, but he has some good grappling. He really does. And Julius Walker, I don't think he's gonna be able to hang in the striking. Alonzo Menifield has good striking, big bombs, shockingly good cardio, I feel like. With how muscly the dude is, he's able to go 3 rounds pretty easily. And yeah, I feel like Alonzo Menifield here is probably gonna have a cakewalk here. I don't think Julius Walker's that good. He's been crushing cans. He's been fighting old dudes. Uh, and he's getting a top 15 guy in his UFC debut. I just think Alonzo Menifield here is definitely the winner. He's a bigger dog, or excuse me, bigger favorite than minus 170 now. I believe he's up to a minus 220 favorite. And even at minus 220, I don't mind him as a parlay piece, or even if you're looking for a straight bet on him, I don't hate it. I really don't. The value is probably capped at, minus 220. I don't know if I'd bet him much higher than that, but I think this is Alonzo Menifield all day. Gian Silva versus Melsik Bagdasarian. So this is a really good fight. And I think the line is way, way off. Gian Silva is really good with his hands. He's really, really good. He probably has the best reads out of a UFC prospect currently. I mean, his reads are good. He's able to, slip an uppercut, and he knows when to throw what punch, almost exactly like that uppercut against um come on, the Canadian. I know who this is. The uppercut, gosh dang. I'll think of it. It'll come to me. Yeah, it'll come to me. He's had some, his fight against Drew Dober. He was reading Drew Dober really well, slipping and throwing crosses. His uppercuts are nasty. Of course, his debut against Weston Wilson, future champ Weston Wilson. Um, oh man, that's right on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, I think he's got really good reads with his hands. Melsik Bagdasarian, on the other hand, he's a really good kickboxer. Where I see him getting into trouble is if Gian Silva, apps or at least chooses to wrestle, it could be a real problem for Melsik. But if this is a straight up stand and bang, I think it's a 50-50 fight. And at plus 425, which he's a bigger underdog now, I don't hate it. I don't hate that there's some real value there if it's a just a straight up stand and bang fight. So the pick I got as far as a pick goes, I think I gotta go with Gian Silva for a pick. His hands are good. He's a brick house. He's got some serious power in his hands. But don't be surprised if this goes to a close decision if it's a straight up striking battle, which I think it will be. It's gonna be a striker's delight. Um Charles Jourdain is his name. That's the uppercut against Charles Jourdain was pretty nasty from Gian Silva. Anyway, back to it. I really don't hate Melsik Bagdasarian as that big of an underdog. And let me look at the line now. It's going to be bigger. Um, no, it's a little smaller. So Melsik is a plus 410 underdog, but even still, not a bad line for a striker versus striker and a kickboxer versus a boxer. Is what I really look at this. So I have a hard time picking against Gian Silva here just because he's so good with his reads. I guess I'll go with Gian Silva here as a pick, but I think the value is absolutely on Melsik's side. If you want to play Gian Silva, play him by KO because that's how he's going to probably win this fight, either KO or decision. But yeah, that it's going to be a good fight. I'm excited for it. Rob Font versus Gian Matsumoto. Um, kind of feel like Rob Font's getting a little bit too much respect here. I I know if you're gonna stand and strike with Rob Font, he's probably gonna piece you up and win those striking battles. But John Matsumoto is, known for his grappling and his wrestling and what he did to Brad Katona this last fight out. And he looked really good. He ragdolled him. He made him look pretty easy. I guess it was a closer fight than I would have liked. It was a 29-28 decision for Gian, but man, Rob's 38 years old. Rob Font is 38 years old nearly. He's not as good as he's never really been that good. His hands are, pretty good, but aside from that, I just don't I have a hard time seeing him win this fight. And the reason I say that is because I have a hard time seeing Gian Matsumoto stand and strike with Rob Font. If he does stand and strike with Rob Font, he loses this fight. But if Matsumoto, comes in there, uses his kicks, uses his jab, sets up the takedowns with his striking, gets in on a takedown. I could see him submitting Rob Font here. I really could, getting on the back and finding the neck of Rob Font. So I don't if John Matsumoto is still a minus 175 favorite, which I'm sure he's close to it, if not lower than that. I think there's some value there on the Gian side. I just think Rob Font's getting too much respect here. I know he's good. I know he has some hands, but plus 130 underdog, I think is off. He should be a bigger underdog, and Matsumoto should be a bigger favorite in my opinion. So with that said, give me Gian Matsumoto for the pick. Brendan Allen versus Fluffy Hernandez. This is going to be a good fight. Probably going to be, one of the better fights of the night. Um, I think Anthony Hernandez is the rightful favorite. Might be a little bit big, but I don't, minus 250 is probably closer to an accurate line. I think Fluffy has way more tools to beat Brendan Allen here. Brendan Allen really is only going to win this fight if he offensively grapples. And it's hard for me to see him being successful in that department either, even just because Anthony Hernandez has, good wrestling himself, good jiu-jitsu himself. His cardio is insane. I mean, he can go for days and days and days and days. And then he's going to be outstriking Brendan Allen in this fight for sure. So, if Brendan Allen can find a way to get to the back early of Anthony Hernandez, then maybe he can find a rear naked choke submission. But other than that, I think this is Anthony Hernandez all day. I think Brendan Allen may win the first round, but rounds 2 and 3, Anthony Hernandez is going to put on the pace. He's going to really incorporate the pace and pressure and cardio that he really has a leg up over Brendan Allen. Uh, and yeah, I think Anthony Hernandez could find a late TKO maybe. A late finish, late TKO is probably more accurate. I don't think he's going to submit Brendan Allen, but he could absolutely find a TKO in the late third round or third round in general. So this one seems pretty straightforward to me. I like Brendan Allen, I really do, but he just doesn't have the tools like Anthony Hernandez does. He's not as well rounded. Anthony Hernandez is really well rounded, got good kicks, his boxing is good. His jiu-jitsu is good and his wrestling is not bad either. So I see Anthony Hernandez winning this fight in all aspects of the game. So then moving on to the main event, we've got Henry Cejudo versus Yadong Song. When this fight was first announced, my initial instincts was Henry Cejudo, is really good against this kind of style. And the reason I thought that is, the TJ Dillashaw style is that striker, you know, power puncher style, even though TJ was initially a wrestler in the beginning. And then the real one that I thought of was Marlon Moraes, which Yadong Song has a similar style to Marlon Moraes. And so initially I was on the Henry Cejudo side, but I got more into it, and I've actually flipped to the other side. I think Yadong Song here is probably gonna dog walk Henry Cejudo. I mean, yes, Henry will probably be successful with his takedowns in the first round or two, but Yadong Song, I guess Henry isn't really a finisher when it comes to his wrestling. He he takes guys down, and then what does he do with it? He has some ground and pound, yes, but Yadong Song isn't just going to sit there and take the ground and pound. I think if Song does get taken down, he'll find a way back up. He'll take the risk, and not that there really is any submission risk there from Henry Cejudo. But Song is going to find a way back up to the feet. He's going to work his leg kicks, and he's going to work his really sharp boxing. And I could see a TKO here from Song Yadong. In the later third, fourth, fifth rounds, I could absolutely see that. Uh, I like Henry. He's always been, a weird, cringy dude, but I like him. I'm a wrestler myself, so I've always loved the wrestlers, but I just have a hard time seeing Henry Cejudo get this one done. So with that said, give me Song Yadong. I'm gonna take him by TKO in the later rounds for sure. So well, there you have it. We've got UFC Seattle broken down. It's a little bit of a less high quality video. I apologize for that, just because again I'm up in Omaha, Nebraska on a business trip. But yeah, stay tuned for the ladder challenge. We're gonna keep going with that until we win that all the way through the $10,000 mark, and then of course stay tuned for the announcement of my new partner in the Saucy Picks MMA world. But with that said, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, find me on all social medias at Saucy Picks MMA, and we will see you next week.